is cloud native necessary? So after spending 5, 6, 8 years toying around with Kubernetes and looking at cloud native from various lenses and things like that, there's starting to be a murmur of what people called repatriation. And there's like the mercenary rebellious sort of crew within like the larger cloud community that are starting to say things like, do we really need the cloud for all kind of workloads? Probably not.
Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya and welcome to our predictions video series. Today we have with us Ram Iyengar, Chief Evangelist at the Cloud Foundry Foundation. Ram, it's great to have you on the show.
Hello Swapnil, always a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure as well. And of course today we are going to ask you to grab your crystal ball and share your predictions. But before we do that, let's quickly talk about Cloud Foundry Foundation in 2024.
We keep getting this question a lot. Whenever we exhibit at KubeCon, whenever we are on live streams and things like that, the community around Cloud Foundry has been able to define an interface that has been unmatched in any other sort of space right now. So there's a lot of conversation on social media. You can sort of see a lot of mentions about Kubernetes and complexity, and Kubernetes and the lack of simplicity. And people want a lot of the things around the periphery of Kubernetes to be made available without a lot of effort. And so they're always looking for a platform-based solution, which Cloud Foundry has been doing for years in the VM space. And so there's at the center of the Kubernetes community is this idea of they won't say it, but of a Cloud Foundry-like interface. And I saw somebody mention it very beautifully. So now that we have the Android for Kubernetes, let's bring in an iPhone for Kubernetes with all of the polish and all of the smoothness and all of that lovely user interface niceties that the engineering community loves. So that I really believe that there's an unmet sort of need for something like Cloud Foundry. And so I think the community just needs to focus and plug in on that gap and really get the most mileage out of this need that the engineering community within Kubernetes has.
Now it's time for you to grab your crystal ball and share your predictions with us.
So this year, especially, I see that the focus of the Kubernetes community at large is going to be around 3 areas. We heard some of this at KubeCon in Chicago, where it's been a decade of Kubernetes. And so what really could be the next 10 years like, and what really could be the focus of the next decade and things like that. But I think the focus areas of this year is going to mimic the focus areas of the next decade, which is the need and implementation of a solid platform strategy around Kubernetes. My second big prediction is that observability and the OpenTelemetry project and that particular area of metrics and metrics management is going to really mature this year. And I see supply chain security as being a big piece and a big area of focus for the Kubernetes community at large this year. So those are my big 3: platforms, observability, and security.
What kind of new or old challenges that you see are going to be there this year for the larger either Cloud Foundry community or like just the Kubernetes community, cloud native community, or the industry in general?
So there's a little bit of discussion going on about, is cloud native necessary? So after spending 5, 6, 8 years toying around with Kubernetes and looking at cloud native from various lenses and things like that, there's starting to be a murmur of what people called repatriation. And there's like the mercenary rebellious sort of crew within like the larger cloud community that are starting to say things like, do we really need the cloud for all kind of workloads? Probably not, but there's also other things like WASM, which is sort of catching up, and a lot of people in the cloud native community are starting to look at WASM and WASM based workloads and things like that. And then you hear news about the Rust community exhibiting tremendous amounts of burnout. And so, as someone who's part of this very fast paced, very large cloud native and Kubernetes community, you sort of want to insulate yourself from these non-technical challenges as well, where you're making sure that your community is healthy, mentally strong, going through some stable phases while contributing and things like that. So I think both the Cloud Foundry community in its current state should really insulate itself from a lot of the vagrancies that can occur. And the Kubernetes and the cloud native community should take note of all of these things as well. So there's some technical challenges there about, becoming or starting to become distracted from your core focus. And there's also non-technical challenges like burnout could affect your community. It can hit you without knowing. And so, there's both these technical and non-technical challenges that the community has to really pay attention to, take into account, and start to do something to counter it. So that I feel are, the big challenges for the year.
And if we look at these challenges, what is going to be the focus of the foundation this year to kind of help users, customers, community members navigate through these challenges?
The tectonic shifts around capitalism-driven business forces is going to be something that we always have to come to terms with. This year in particular, major acquisitions happening in one of the big member companies for the foundation is an area of some concern, but also a lot of opportunity where we're seeing in particular, like Broadcom acquired VMware, which kept us a little worried around the end of last year. The acquisition has gone on well. There's been a lot of news about reorganizations and things like that, as you would expect. But so far, the community has remained largely unaffected. So our contributors are intact. Our projects seem to be all working shipshape. There's been no disruption that I know of, major or minor, which is a very healthy sign. Now, that being said, Broadcom has also reinforced its commitment to open source in a few indirect ways, where they've also become members of the foundations that VMware was. So, we're very optimistic about VMware in its current state and in its future state, continuing to play an important role within the Cloud Foundry community, and we expect it to stay that way largely. So, obviously, like I said, there's always a little bit of uncertainty that we have to prepare ourselves for. But at the moment, the community has been doing a really good job in sort of staying together and continuing to keep the focus on the projects and keep all of the open source engines running and in shipshape.
Ram, thank you so much for taking time out today and share these predictions with us. Thanks for all those great insights. And as usual, I look forward to talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swapnil. This is an amazing series that you've been doing, and I'm happy to be contributing to it as well. Thanks.